This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and it is the Game Day preview podcast, game preview podcast of the Parramatta Eels versus the Melbourne Storm, round number 22. Is this game being played at Commbank Stadium, 7:50 p.m. on the 31st of July, the last day of July. The year is certainly flying by, that is for sure. Now, I actually did a little bit of a chat with Stormy Daniel from the Stormcast Podcast, and I will add that in a little bit later after this. I'll just go through some stats of this game, and look, these two sides, they are in two different completely positions on the ladder. The Melbourne Storm are in third spot on the ladder on 32 points, having won 13 games, only lost the 5, and had 3 byes. Parramatta, they are in 14th position on the ladder, having won 6 games and lost 12 and had their 3 byes as well. So very different positions on the ladder at the moment. And look, it is looking like Melbourne will sew up a top 4 spot this season. And Parramatta, well, they are looking to, I guess, sort of climb it a little bit, but unfortunately I don't think they will play finals this season, but it is experience for these younger players that have played under Jason Ryles, a rookie coach this year, and it is an experienced time, and it is a time for those players to shine and look into getting their combinations together, and also look forward towards 2026, because I can tell you now there is some exciting times going to happen in 2026, that is for sure. And the rest of 2025, well, as I said, that is a good chance for these young players like your Isaiah Iongi, who's actually out at the moment, unfortunately, but Joash Papali, who has taken his spot there back at fullback, Riley Smith as well, just a couple of young guns there, Talon Da Silva as well, get a bit more experience in this rugby league side of the Parramatta Eels at the moment, mid-season signing, and get those games under their belt and get that experience, get those combinations working. Hopefully Mitch Moses stays fit and healthy and can play the remaining 7 games of the season, because we saw the impact that he certainly had up against Brisbane last week. He certainly lifted his teammates and they got the victory last week. Now, if we go to some old sort of stats, I guess you could say, before we get into this year's stats. Now, this the last 10 games, Melbourne have won the last 5 in a row. Before that, Parramatta had won the 4 before that in a row, and then obviously it was Melbourne. So look, relatively even on the occasions, although some of the Melbourne victories have been by big scores. Here at Commbank Stadium, there have been 5 games, and Parramatta have won 3 of them. Melbourne have won 2, and that is actually the last 2 in a row. You'll remember in 2023, Harry Grant scored that golden point try, unfortunately, from dummy half. So close. That was round 1. But more interesting, I think, is in those 5 games at Commbank Stadium, Parramatta have scored more points than Melbourne, 78 points to 74. And in all Eels home games, as there has been 20 since 1998, it's 10 games all. So, relatively sort of even standings, I guess you could say, at Parramatta when these two sides meet. So there's been some good games there. Let's just check out some of those games that have been played at Parramatta. And they start off, it was a win. It was actually a win to Melbourne, 32 points to 22 in 1998. So they actually kicked off their history with a win against Parramatta at Parramatta. And then Parramatta went on to win the next 3, lost the next 4, and we have... Sorry, I'm just looking at as we go here. And Parramatta won the next 3 after that, lost the next 4, won the next 3. So it's a little bit up and down, isn't it? No real massive big scores in this sort of in these games at Parramatta. They're all relatively sort of close-ish games. Middle. So the biggest victory I could see is back in 2001 by Parramatta, 42 points to 18. That's the biggest score that I can see here. But other than that, they are not really massive scores. Some good crowds there as well, especially of recent times. 2022, 23,000 at Commbank, 17,000 in that round 1 game. That Harry Grant unfortunately got the victory there for the Storm. Now, if we look at some of the players that have played for both clubs, and then look, there has been a few over the years. In fact, one of their assistant coaches, Todd Lowry, he is one of them. He is down there at the Melbourne Storm at the moment as a assistant coach, and he did play for both clubs. Alex Chan, whose son Joe, I believe, is playing in this game for Melbourne. So he played for both clubs. Richard Fayoso. We also have some familiar names here. George Jennings as well. I think George was on loan, at one stage. Or might have played a season before. I cannot remember that one. Luke Kelly, David Kidwell, Junior Lange, Todd Lowry, as I mentioned, Isaac Lumilumi, the winger there, started off at Melbourne, ended up at Parramatta. Tapai Moroa, Ryan Morgan as well, Henry Perenara, Chase Blair, I believe, Ben Roberts as well. So there's a few names there that have played for both clubs. Not a lot, as you could imagine, but some familiar names there, that is for sure. Let me know who your favourite one there is as well. And also, let me know what your favourite Parramatta Melbourne game is as well. So, look, there's not too many favourite Melbourne Storm Parramatta Eels games for me, to be honest. I don't think I've been down to Melbourne for a victory. I can't remember offhand if I have, when I've gone down to Melbourne and we have won. 2017, I thought we had a really good chance, but unfortunately I think we got ripped off in that game, but that's another story. There was a forward pass right in front of me and others in the away bay for the Parramatta Eels. But anyway, and look, I remember Ray Stone. I think he made his debut for Parramatta down there in Melbourne. Obviously, unfortunately, I wasn't down there in Melbourne when Ray did score that great try. That was about round 3 or something down there in Melbourne, and it was, unfortunately he did his knee in that game too. Round 3 it was 2022. He scored a double that day, Ray Stone, 2 tries. Unfortunately, did his knee, but I remember that. I was watching it in the Para Cave. I wasn't down there for that game. Typical, when I'm not at a game, Parramatta win. So just like last Friday, when I wasn't at Suncorp and Parramatta win. Anyway, Ray Stone did his knee that day. The other game that really stands out for me, and it's probably a little bit of a personal reason, to be honest, is there was a game played at Parramatta in 2010, round number 13. It was a Parramatta victory, 24 points to 10. And the reason it stands out for me is, again, I wasn't at this game, so maybe that's telling you something. The reason it stands out for me is because it was my wife's birthday on that occasion, and that was the night that I proposed my now wife Amanda. So, and that was back in the day too, where both games weren't live. So, there was, I think, 2 games being played at 7:30, I think it was, back in the day. And what they would do, this was just on Channel 9, I think, so they would obviously have one live and they would have one on replay after the replay. So I remember going out to dinner and my now wife Amanda saying yes to my proposal, which was happy days. And then we went back to the hotel and this game was on replay, so it just happened to catch the end of this replay and Parramatta win. So happy days for me. But anyway, that's enough about me. Let's talk about the football. Well, let's get to this year's stats for both these sides. And look, Parramatta lost a big time in round number 1, 56 points to 18. Mitch Moses wasn't playing. He is playing in this game, so he will definitely make a difference in this game. The last 5 rounds for both of these sides, the Melbourne Storm have won 4 out of their last 5, going down to the Sea Eagles at Amy Park a few weeks ago. And Parramatta 2 wins out of their last 5. However, they have been playing some really good football, just haven't been getting the results this season. Points scored, Melbourne 567, Parramatta 335. Points conceded, that is a problem for Parramatta, 482 compared to Melbourne's 345. Completion rates are pretty even, 77% for Parramatta and 78 for the Melbourne Storm. Their play the ball speed is a little bit quicker, 3.53 seconds. Parramatta's 3.57. Average points conceded, 26 for Parramatta, 19 for the Melbourne Storm. Average points scored, 18 for Parramatta, 31 for the Melbourne Storm. Now, there's a few little stats for you. If you enjoy that, let me know. I love going back through all the old history and just checking it all out and talking about it as well, if I can remember it. Another game I felt we didn't get justice was the 99 prelim final. I do feel like former Parramatta coach Stephen Kearney did elbow Jason Smith, but that's another podcast for another day. That was after the 98 prelim. No, don't remind me about that one. Anyway, what we will do now is I'll tag on I'll add on this podcast that I did with Stormy Daniel, the Stormcast Podcast, and I will add this onto the end of this one. I recorded this the other night, to be honest, and look, it was a really enjoyable chat, and he gives a good Melbourne perspective and I give a good Parramatta perspective, so I hope you enjoy that one. And look, I hope to see many of you listeners out there at Commbank Stadium on Thursday. Thursday nights are a little bit hard to attract the crowd to the game, being on a Thursday night, middle of the week, and also the weather is not looking too good for Parramatta on game day. They're expecting a bit of rain tomorrow as well, so it's not looking too good. With who that is better for, I do not know, because I don't think both sides have played much football in wet weather conditions. So ball handling will be crucial in this one, that is for sure. Anyway, we'll go to that chat. Thank you very much for listening to this, and stay tuned for a little bit more of a game day preview, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And as I said, I hope to see lots of you listeners out at Commbank Stadium tomorrow night. Before the game, I'll be at Parramatta Leagues Club. Obviously, I always go there first. Major sponsor of the Para Cave podcast, so I will have a Jack's Pale Ale there, as I always do. Major sponsor of the Para Cave podcast is Parramatta Leagues Club, so maybe I might see a few of you there as well pre-game. Anyway, enjoy this podcast, and I hope you have, and it is available on Apple, Spotify, and any other good podcast platform. Also, please give me a follow on Instagram and Facebook as well. I would much appreciate that one. And look, go Para!
And a special Team List Tuesday. And the reason why it's special, I have a guest that is joining Stormcast, and I'm sure a lot of fans, not only Parramatta Eels fans and members would know this man, but I think all rugby league fans would have an affinity with the one and only Troy Warner. Troy, thank you so much for coming on Stormcast.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. And as you just mentioned before, off air, it's great that this little rugby league community can get together and chat footy and have some friendly banter and talk about the greatest game of all.
Absolutely. I completely echo those sentiments wholeheartedly. And, well, without any further ado, let's get into the preview, shall we? Craig Bellamy has confirmed his squad for Thursday night's clash with your mighty Parramatta Eels in Sydney. Ryan Pappenhausen returns for his first game since round 17. Obviously, he's been out with that calf tightness, as the club put out, which he then clarified was a calf strain. The fullback has been named in the number 1 jersey, with Nick Meaney reverting back to the centres. Cameron Munster is also back at 5'8", partnering Tyron Wishart at halfback. The forward pack features one change from last week, with Tui Kamikamica starting at lock in place of the rested Trent Liero. Bronson Garlick, Ativalu Lasati, Jonah Pezzett and Joe Chan are named on extended bench. Before I get into it, Troy, because it is the Eels home game at Commbank, I'll get you to go through the Parramatta team.
Yeah, sure. Well, we are pretty fortunate this week because it is pretty much the same team as that beat the Broncos last week. So it's always good to have no changes in your side to get that little bit of consistency. But fullback, Joash Papali. On the wing, Zach Lomax and one of your former players, Josh Addo-Carr, the Fox. In the centres, Will Penasini and Sean Russell. In the halves, Dean Hawkins, Mitchell Moses captains the team. Jermaine Hopgood and Junior Paolo in the front rowers. Riley Smith is the hooker. Charlie Geimer and Jack Williams are the back rowers, and Dylan Walker locks the scrum. On the reserves bench, Talon De Silva, Luca Moretti, Matt Dury and Sam Tuivati.
Very good. Okay. Well, this is how the Storm line up. Ryan Pappenhausen is at fullback. Grant Anderson reverts to the wing with Xavier Coates. Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney are in the centres. Cameron Munster, as mentioned, is back in the number 6 jersey, named at 5'8". Tyron Wishart has been named as Jerome Hughes' replacement. Stefano Uto Ikemanu and Josh King are in the front row. Harry Grant is at hooker and captain. Sean Bloor and Alicia Katoa are in the second row, and Tui Kamikamica is, as mentioned, at lock. On the interchange bench, now this is where it gets interesting. Jonah Pezzett has been named in the 14 jersey. Ativalu Lasati at 15, Bronson Garlick at 16, and Joe Chan in 17. On the extended reserves list, Kane Bradley, Alec McDonald, who hasn't featured, for the past 4 weeks due to rib complaint. Suolagi Tumalatu Brown, Josiah Paulu, the mid-season signing is in jersey 21, and Big Lazarus Valaepu rounds out the 22 on the extended reserves list. Now, from your perspective, Troy, do you anticipate any changes to that 17 that Jason Riles has named?
No, I don't think so. I think he'll run with that 1 to 17. We have seen previously in previous weeks a few little changes here and there, but I think because the team won last week with that side, I think they'll stick with that one.
Okay, because I did note that Kelma Tuolagi has been named on the extended reserves and was playing some really, really good football. So if there would be a change, would you anticipate that he may be the one that would come in?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think he will be. Having 3 weeks off due to suspension, though, I think he'll probably have to get a little bit more match fitness back into him. But, yeah, that would probably be the change if there was one, and probably it would make way for Charlie Geimer. But I honestly, I don't think that will happen, to be honest, because Charlie's been playing some good footy himself. So he scored a couple of tries and has been tackling his butt off. So I think he will retain that spot anyway.
Yeah, I've got a big rap on that Sam Tuivasa as well. I think he's going to be one hell of a player once he gets probably another couple of pre-seasons into him and starts to hit that 50, 60 game mark. I think the sky's the limit, and having someone like Jason Riles, who was a well-renowned middle forward as well, he's got a really, really good mentor there.
Yeah, definitely. A debut season for Big Sam this year, and as you said, he's looks like he's got a bright future in front of him. Got through a ton of work last week against the Broncos in a short period of time. I think he played 33 minutes or something, and got through a ton of work there. So with Junior Paolo probably coming towards the end of his career, it certainly is good to have Sam there, probably to take over his spot once Junior does retire. But you're right, once he gets 40, 50 games under his belt, a couple of pre-seasons, and what it takes to get into the NRL and play NRL, then yeah, he could be a force to be reckoned with.
And we're really starting to see that with Luca Moretti too now, aren't we? Like he's been around for a couple of years, but this has probably been his most consistent season, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately for Luca, he does suffer a few injuries here and there, so there has been a little bit of a disruption. But no, you're right there as well. I think he's probably coming into a little bit of form as well. He came back last week against Brisbane, and this is his second run back. But he has played some glimpses there this season of what he can potentially get to. And I think he's probably around that 35 game mark, I think, off memory. It could be a little bit more than that, but so he's coming into that 50, 60 game mark as well. So getting that experience, if only he could not have the injuries.
Yeah, well, it really comes down to luck, doesn't it? You know, some players go through their entire careers and, you know, they'd be lucky to have a cork, and then you get other players that just can find an injury like there's no tomorrow. But and he unfortunately falls in that category. But you know, he's not Robinson Crusoe there. It's a physically demanding game, as we know, a collisional sport, and some players are just down on their luck when it comes to injuries. So let's hope the Eels fans that he can get some consistency in terms of a clear run, and the injury gods start picking on someone else.
Yeah, no, for sure. As you said, we don't like to see players get injured, and certainly those that tend to have injuries all the time, it's never any good to see that. So, you know, if probably our greatest player at presently, Mitchell Moses, if he wasn't injured, then we'd probably be in a different position on the ladder this season. That is for sure, because he spent most of it out of the game injured, and and last week was his first week back, and I think that was his 8th game this season, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's a perfect segue. Actually, I was about to say that from a Storm perspective, in terms of the strengths, the weaknesses, where the game, I think, can be won for the Eels. I think probably in previous seasons, Troy, and it really the Eels had a real focus on a power game with big bodies going through the middle and really trying to dominate that middle third. But under Jason Rolls, he's obviously come through, and the thing that strikes me when I watch the Eels, they are quick. They've got a lot of pace. They've got a lot of ball movement. They've got a lot of mobility now, and there's a lot of speed. And one thing that you can't coach is speed, and that really worries me when I look at this Eels backline. Like Papali's no slouch. Lomax can hold his own. Peniseni is very, very quick off the mark and can get across field very, very quickly. Sean Russell, well, he just showed his exploits last week against the Broncos with that fantastic chip and chase and regather. Josh Adokar, as we know, once touted fastest man on the planet by Phil Gould. And then obviously Moses is no slouch himself as a running half. And the thing that really, I think, is a real point of difference between these two teams is the kicking game of Mitchell Moses. Being able to basically change momentum through a long kick, kicking to the cage, kicking to the corner, and having that real relentless line speed, and for an opposition team to start their sets on their 10 or their 20 as opposed to their 30 and their 40. And that's where the Moses factor really, really comes into play, and something that the Eels have probably missed, as you made mention, and it was really on show last week. He just basically kicked the Broncos to death in that regard. Didn't give them any room, didn't give them any time and space, and that was backed up obviously through their kick chase and their line speed. So that there, to me, that's where the Eels have a real probably benefit and an advantage in that kicking game, coupled with the speed that they do have in their back five, and the mobility and the ball movement, which really, really centres around Dylan Walker. The ability for him to sort of be that link man, that first receiver role, which then sort of frees up the halves, gives them a little bit more space, a little bit more width. That really, really, I suppose, strikes a little bit of trepidation as a Storm fan in that regard.
Yeah, no, Dylan Walker has been a great buy mid-season for Parramatta. Just gives another ball-playing option in the middle there. And as you mentioned, Mitchell Moses, with his kicking game, he can probably kick a team to death, I think, because it's not only the long kicking game, it's the high kicking game, which gives the chasers time to get down to the fullback or the winger, and also his short kicking game. I mean, as we saw that try for Zach Lomax on the weekend, pinpoint accuracy, pretty much in the breadbasket of Zach Lomax. So that is a definite bonus, and I think that is a big advantage that Parramatta will have on the weekend or Thursday against Melbourne. I don't think Melbourne have probably they don't have as big a kicking game as Mitchell Moses. Munster is a good kicker and can put up a high ball, but I just don't think it's as high as Mitchell's. But and as you mentioned, the speed in the back line, that's something that's probably Parramatta has lacked over the last few seasons, is speed. We're starting to see that now. Isaiah Aongi at fullback, unfortunately he's out injured this weekend, but Joash Papali, Fox, as you mentioned before, former the fastest man on the planet. So that is something that we have lacked, and I think the body shape of the forwards as well has changed in the preseason as well to be a bit leaner and quicker as well, and the offload game from Parramatta as well. That's what some of the forwards can be known as. Jermaine Hopgood, Junior Paolo as well is known for his offloads as well. So that will be something in the armoury that Parramatta will no doubt use use. Just have to use it at the right time and the right place. Sometimes they can go a bit astray and not an offload not used at the right time, which can get very frustrating. But definitely having Mitchell back is a massive advantage because, of course, we didn't have Mitchell in round one when you guys absolutely flogged us. So it's a different time for these two sides playing at this side because, I mean, round one, you guys gave us a nice touch-up. We had a new team. We didn't have Mitchell in the side. So I think they're two completely sort of different teams. Melbourne is slowly working their way towards September, and Parramatta are completely different to what they did at the start, what they were at the start of the year. Dylan Walker wasn't there. Mitchell Moses wasn't there. So, yeah, it's and these young players weren't there either. Joash Papali wasn't there either. So, it's going to be a different sort of a game between these two sides.
Absolutely, and I think one thing that's been really noticeable, and it's echoed in Jason Rolls' sort of commentary in his post-match press conferences and whatnot, is that he said that the improvement, they're looking for improvement week on week, week in, week out. And I think you can see, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a winning performance or a winning game. It's the improvements in game. It's the improvements of the individuals. It's the improvement on edges. And one thing that has been noticeable is they are definitely more connected and buying into the defensive system.
Yep.
That wasn't there in probably the first quarter of the season. Their ability to not only identify the opposition shape a lot better. Everyone is delivering on their assignment, right? They're not missing their assignment in that regard, where they're tying in where they should be. They're being able to double D on an opposition player. The ability to scramble, which is always a really, really good sign defensively. So whilst you might be missing tackles, but if your scramble is there and you're getting back in numbers and there's more jerseys in the frame to try and stop a try, that they're the improvements that would be making Jason Rolls very, very happy, because it identifies effort and it identifies that everyone's buying in and believing. So that, to me, as an opposition fan watching the Eels' progression this year, that's something that is definitely noticeable. That isn't there with other teams at the moment. So it must hearten you as an Eels fan to see that progress that has been made.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously the results haven't been there of late, but definitely the improvement has been there. I mean, to lead Canberra at half-time, who are leading the competition at the moment. Fortunately, we fell away in the second half, but that was a learning curve, especially for last week. And, even against teams like Canterbury and also Penrith as well, we have gone with them in the games, but just haven't. We've faded out towards the end of those games, and they've ended up putting a score on us. So there are signs there, and as you mentioned there, the connection in defence as well is a lot better now as it was towards the start of the year, as these guys are getting used to playing week in, week out with each other. They're learning each other's games, so it definitely, I think, is a better defensive season as well. We're not seeing those 50-point scores put on against us these days, which is really good to see, obviously. It's only getting better. And look, this part of the season is probably 2025 is probably gone for Parramatta, but this part of the season and these last 7 games are going to be a learning curve for the young guys and moving forward into next season.
Absolutely. And just going back to the teams and looking, you did mention the obvious difference, which I do completely agree with you, with the kicking game of Mitchell Moses compared to probably that of Cameron Munster. And that's always been an Achilles heel for the Storm over the last couple of years, even with Jerome Hughes, who, whilst he won't be playing in this game, he wasn't a noted general play kicker either.
Okay.
And when you've got two former fullbacks, shall we say, that transition into halves, they don't necessarily come with a natural kicking game like Mitchell Moses has. So it's always been a weakness for the Storm in that regard. It probably gets overlooked a lot because of obviously being so dominant and being in that sort of top four and banking wins, etc. But they don't rely on their kicking game because they can't rely on their kicking game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of their ability to score points, they rely to try and get into good ball and put on shape, as opposed to relying on kicking game to change momentum. So they try and power through the middle, get into good ball area, and then allow their creatives, their 1, 6, 7, and 9, to do their thing, as opposed to really relying on a kicking game per se. So as you were saying about like Cameron Munster putting a floating bomb up, etc., and then you just hope the aerial exploits of a Xavier Coates can come down with the goods, right?
Yeah, that's it.
But that's rolling the dice. It's not calculated. It's not timed. It's one of those things that they would train for, but it doesn't come off the boot sweetly. You can tell that it's not a rehearsed. It's more of, I'm just going to throw it up and see what happens.
Yeah.
Which gives me a little bit of anxiety, if I'm being honest, because we don't have that natural kicking game per se.
Yeah.
Jerome Hughes' short, deft kicking game will definitely be missed, and it's for this reason why, even though Tyron Wishart has been named in the 7 jersey, I have a suspicion that Jonah Pezzett, due to the fact that he is a specialist halfback with a natural kicking game like Mitchell Moses, I've just got a bit of a leaning, and call it a feeling, call it male intuition, if you like. If I was Craig Bellamy, I would be starting Jonah Pezzett and moving Tyron Wishart back to the bench, which I think we will see at some stage. Does it happen pre-game when they run out for kickoff? I'm not sure. Does Bellamy want to keep Tyron Wishart out there for the first 20, 30 minutes to just take the sting out of the game and then put Jonah Pezzett on? Perhaps. He did that against the Cowboys. He did that against the Knights. He may go down that track again. My personal opinion, I would start Pezzett because of the kicking game, and I think you need to start well in that regard. And if they are on the back foot, a good kicking game, as you know, can get you out of trouble and hopefully change momentum in that regard. So if there was to be a change, I would anticipate that Pezzett would start at halfback with Wishart going back to the bench, which would then see Bronson Garlick falling off the interchange bench. And in jersey number 19, Alec McDonald, I anticipate, will come onto that bench. So they're the two changes that I anticipate could and perhaps would happen come 7:50 p.m. Thursday night.
Yeah, well, I mean, it probably makes sense there. I mean, back in the old days, if your number 1 halfback was injured, then you just slot your number 2 halfback straight into the starting side, wouldn't you? But I guess the quality of Tyron Wishart and the way he can play many a position has probably got him there. But as you mentioned, it probably makes sense for Jonah to start the game. Because he's probably the number 2 halfback there. Tyron can play a lot of positions, and halfback is one of them. But I probably agree with you there. I think Jonah might start.
I just think Wishart offers more as a 14, and as you said, the ability to play multiple positions and whatnot. And he isn't a natural ball player. He's a natural runner. He's a very good runner of the football. The reason why I think Belzer has named him at halfback, and if he does run out in the halves, I think it's purely the fact that Craig Bellamy is a very defensive-orientated coach, and it's for that reason and that reason alone that he's probably erring on the side of not caution, but he's got a tendency to always pick a better defensive player over someone who is probably more attackingly gifted and minded in that regard. So hence why I think why he has given Wishart or has named Wishart in the 7 jersey at this point in time. So, but again, we're 24 hours before the team list gets trimmed down to 19, and again, will we be any wiser? Probably not. So it's probably not going to happen until we won't be any wiser until probably 7:50 at on Thursday night at Commbank Stadium when the two teams do run out.
Or 6:50 at least.
Yeah, exactly right.
An hour out.
Yes, very true. Very true. Very true. Well, mate, I'll give you a tip. What are you thinking?
Oh, look, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. I have heard that it is going to be rainy conditions on Thursday. I haven't checked the weather forecast, but I think it is going to be raining. So I guess both teams haven't played that many games in the rain this year, or for a long time. But I think it could be something like maybe a 20-16 game. I think, as I said before, they're two different teams from round number one, so I don't think there'll be masses of points scored. Home ground advantage, confidence will be high for Parramatta, seeing as though they won last week. Back at home, I'm obviously going to tip Parramatta to win. But yeah,
I would have been shocked if you didn't.
Yeah, well, my tipping competition hasn't been going that well this year because I've been tipping Parramatta, so I've only got them right on about 6 occasions this year. So I've given up 18 or 16 points already this year for them, 13 points. But 20-16. Look, I think it might be close until the last, say, 10 minutes or so. And then maybe Riley Smith might go over for the match winner from dummy half, a bit like Harry Grant style that he did to us in, what was it, 2023?
Round one, Golden Point.
That's right, that's right. So, yeah, I think about that. What about yourself?
I'm like you. I think this game will be a lot tighter than what many pundits and probably the betting markets are suggesting in that regard. I definitely think if it is wet weather, wet weather is the great equaliser. It's the great leveller, and will definitely bring the teams a lot closer together in that regard. Storm have struggled actually in the wet this year. Work that out, considering they're the Storm. They struggled against the Dragons back in round 4, and they struggled against the Raiders in Magic Round. So it is their Achilles heel for whatever reason this year. But I anticipate a game that is probably going to be a bit of an arm wrestle very early on. And again, the kicking game of Moses is definitely going to put a lot of pressure and force the Storm to come out of their backfield. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Anderson and Coates to really start to get the Storm set started. If they can sort of lay a platform and provide that sort of platform for the likes of Uta Ikamanu and Kamikamitas and Lasati to really get on the front foot, then hopefully that does bring in the likes of Grant, Munster, Pappenhausen to run. But again, a lot of it's going to be conducive to the fact that if the weather does start to play havoc, I anticipate Storm will try and keep it tight, keep it conservative, and really try and play a wet weather game. In saying all that, if I had to say, if there was a tip, I don't know score-wise. I'm just going to say probably the Storm by 8.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And that's a lot of respect for what the Eels have done over the past probably 4 to 6 weeks, and the progression that they've come with. But traditionally the Eels have always been a bit of a bogey team. Obviously not Magic Round, but
no.
But traditionally at Commbank, the Storm have always struggled there. So again, the tightness, as you made mention before, in 2023 was only in Golden Point, but up until that point, the Eels had sort of a rails run over the Storm when playing out of Commbank. So that factor, as I said to you before, the improvement in the defensive systems, I definitely think this will be
Yeah, no, looking forward to it for sure. I think there's, since 1998 at all three Parramatta venues, I think there's been 20 games, and it's 10 games all. So
There you go.
And then in the last 10 games, I think it's Melbourne have won the last 5 in a row, and then Parramatta won the last 4 before that, and then Melbourne won the one before that. So
There you go.
Melbourne have got the last 2 at Parramatta. So
Yeah, well.
hopefully
let's hope
it's not number
let's hope
3.
it continues. Very good. All right, Troy. Look, mate, I'm going to let you go. I know you're a busy man. You've got people to see, podcasts to do. So, look, thank you so much for making the time to join me and preview the game. And, look, I look forward to bumping into you out there at Commbank on Thursday night.
Yeah, no problems. Thanks for having me on your show. And, yeah, definitely I'll keep an eye out for you, and we'll say good day. And may the best team win, and may that be Parramatta.
Good, man. I'll let you have the last say, mate.
Thanks, mate.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Dylan, how you going,
Russ.
mate? Are you a Paracave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Para.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.